of the hub, slowly but surely sinking from view, a new journey was about to begin for young Cat. With a band of 8 outlaws from the Holy Nation, Cat had a home on the road. Not many words were shared, but all these wanderers seemed to have an understanding, a need to stay together. A herd was stronger than one alone, and it's on that road that our story begins today. Kia ora, Legionnaires, Rycon here, and welcome back to Kenshi, Tale of the Blade. The outlaws left the hub in a roughly northern direction, and not knowing much outside of the hub, the destination of these wanderers is a mystery to Cat, and it's a mystery to me too. Just where their feet will take them, we'll find that out together as Cat's first night on the road begins. The first destination the outlaws passed was a bar run by the shinobi thieves on the outskirts of the hub. Beyond this point was wild territory, relatively ungoverned by the larger factions, and home to the many bandits and monsters of the continent. Their pace was slower than what Cat was used to, yet the outlaws did not rest. They continued walking throughout the night before the sun crept over the horizon in the east. The peace of the morning was shattered by approaching figures, and it wasn't long before those very bandits had sight of the outlaws. But as we know, Cat has dealt with their kind before, and fighting alongside the outlaws, he'd stand a much better chance than he would otherwise. They could hold the attention of these bandits and allow Cat to strike unhindered. But where there was one bandit, there was usually more, and a distant horn spoke to the truth of this. Dust bandits, not unlike the gangs roaming outside the hub. Impressed by their determination, Cat fought on. The bandits' arrows found their mark. Thank the gods for strong helmets. The 8 outlaws slowly but surely began to tire, but Cat was just getting started. No immortal, and with more and more of those dust bandits piling on Cat, finally his stamina gives out, blood pooling inside of his helmet, the bolts piercing through into his skin. From here, he couldn't know the condition of the 8, but if any was still alive, it would be a miracle. Cat is going to have to pick his moment right. With more of the bandits getting back on their feet, when he comes to, he may just have to play dead. And so, with the enemy close by, and his senses returning to him, Cat bandages up what wounds he can, stopping the bleeding, and slowly but surely removing those bolts. There were at least 8 bandits left, but many of them were bloodied. He could wait here among the bodies, pretending to be dead, but it'd only be a matter of time before one of them worked up the courage to take the blade from his body. No, he would have to fight. Leaping up, he tries to catch them off guard. 3 down, 5 to go. The first a bowman further up the hill. He'd need to close fast. Another fallen. And for a moment, Cat has peace. Time enough to see to his wounds, and time enough to survey the carnage around here. Bandit bodies strewn all over. More of them walking weakly in the distance. He couldn't let them get away now. Not while he still had a chance to defend himself. Down again. Hard this time. But with his toughness as high as it is, Cat won't be down for too long. His injuries aren't that bad yet. He can fight on, and he's going to need to if he's going to get out of this valley alive. A minute was all it would take before he'd be back up on his feet again. And so he waits, biding his time, summoning what strength he has left. There's still a little bit more fighting to be done. And there it is, once again, that spark to keep on fighting. It's not over yet. Close that ground. Get the kill. 2 for 1. And with that, the valley falls silent. Silent until incredulously, some of the outlaws stand back up. Not dead yet, it would seem. With Cat close behind, and with some medicine left, he might be able to save a few yet. The situation was most certainly dire for them all. They'd need to take stock, see who was still alive and who could still walk. All that time in the hub taught Cat a thing or two about how to stitch the human body back together again. But Cat only had so many bandages, and for many of the 8, their life's blood had already left them, staining the valley, which would hold memory of them for only a short time. There was only one other survivor, unable to walk, and their arm a mangled mess. Cat did what he could with what he had. And so, of the 8 original outlaws, only 2 remained. But between them, and with Cat on their side, they took on 3 times their number and lived to tell the tale, at least for now. With their wounds mended, the 3 would leave this valley of death behind. While Cat may be a good Samaritan, he is fresh out of bandages and first aid, his pack only containing a few splints. If they run into another group like that out here, then they're going to be in much more trouble. They chose not to speak of those left behind. The outlaws had no intention of burying or burning their dead.
It's always been this way.
One spoke to Cat. He nodded in return, choosing to remain silent, keeping his eyes to the horizon until he saw that same bar on the outskirts of the hub. The 2 remaining outlaws would need to rest and recover, and so would Cat. The afternoon sun was beginning to dip down, and his first day away from the hub had him heading back towards it. He couldn't go back within the walls without risking potential confrontation with the thieves, but staying in the bar on the outskirts, well, that might just be allowed. Cat gave the 2 survivors a package of coins left over from his scavenging days, enough to see them rest within the walls of the hub. But for him, this establishment would have to do. It was near empty, save for a few guards. Cat wasn't looking to start any trouble, just find himself a meal and some rest. From here, he could purchase more food and the first aid supplies required to survive. Most importantly, he could find himself a bed for the afternoon and the night. The guards did keep an awful close eye on him, but right now, that's the least of Cat's concerns. The 8 outlaws that Cat left with were wiped out, and he knew that no caravan would come these ways yet, and the chances of finding another group of willing outlaws was slim. No, it was as I think he feared. He was going to have to go it on his own. The boy was fast. Maybe he could outrun them if he encountered bandits again. Maybe. But that was for tomorrow. For tonight, all that was on his mind was rest. With the dazzling night sky overhead, what a rest it would be. With the rising sun and the sound of flies buzzing around the dead outside, It was time for Cat to rise, to return to the road, his pack full of food. He'd have a little while, at least, to find civilization. And so it was that Cat would begin his journey anew. With his level of endurance as high as it was, the boy would be able to run for quite a time, but eventually even he would tire. Let's hope that he can find at least something out here. Choosing instead at this time to travel west rather than north, and with a road or an ancient stream bed, he had a direction at least for now. The valley slowly gave way to wider plains, and then to something entirely different, an almost alien-looking landscape with strange colored flora and a red lake far off in the distance. It seemed to Cat like an oasis. Life was flourishing here, and perhaps with that life there might be civilization. We would just have to hope that that civilization wouldn't be tied to the Holy Nation or the United Cities. However, it was neither of them that Cat would find first. With the edge of this oasis in the border zone, the edges of these woods were still home to bandits. And with his last defeat still fresh in his mind, Cat now had something to prove. He couldn't afford to fall to this group. He was alone. No one would pick him up. No one would save him. And that thought, that realization, drove him. With great swings of the phoenix blade, one by one, the bandits dropped. Even the bowmen weren't safe. Their bolts would ricochet off the helm and get stuck in the chain shirt that protected his torso. His limbs were vulnerable, but they were also swift. And once again, silence found Cat. Waiting, he strained his ears and searched the foliage. No other bandits were here, but the sun was getting low. He would need to find somewhere safe, somewhere secure to spend the night. And it was the sight of water that beckoned him forwards. But getting closer to that small lake would reveal so much more. Homes, not just one, many. Strange and different than the hub. There was a fire, a light inside of one. Fire meant people, just hopefully not bandits. And as Cat drew nearer, the skies opened up and rain fell. Not normal rain, bright red, like blood, like the water in that lake. Not wanting to spend a night outside, wet and miserable, Cat had little other choice than to head inside. And what awaited was quite the sight. Countless beings, hivers they were called, and they walked right through him like he was unseen to them. Some were clothed while others were not. They weren't ones for talk. The soldiers among them eyed Cat warily, but said nothing. And so he warmed himself by the fire as the workers pushed on by, paying him no mind. It was far from the hospitality of the bar and the hub, but they seemed to have no opinion of Cat, one way or the other. Right now, that's exactly what he needed. With considerable effort and persistence, Cat finally got one of the soldiers to open up.
I have no name to give, outsider. We are the Western Hive. This is Vane. Trade, outsider. Trade, and you are welcome. Bring goods, give goods.
So it's as simple as that then. You want me to trade, give you cats?
Yes.
And I can stay.
For now. Don't cause trouble.
I ain't got no plan to. And so it was. Cat's residence in Vane would begin. The location was not without its perils, however. Horrific creatures known as big things roamed the area and frequently caused death and destruction when enraged. The town itself consisted of 6 structures built by the Hive, 3 of which were used for housing, 2 for industry, and the final for trade. There were hundreds of hivers, or bugs, as folks in the hub called them. each with their own place in this ecosystem. It was in his time here at Vane, Cat finally had the chance to learn how to survive outside of the hub, to scavenge, to fish, even attempting to learn how to swim. The water, however, was far from pleasant. Cat swore he could hear the hivers laughing on the shoreline. But while they might be laughing, the process would make Cat stronger. Yes, at first the acid would burn, but with each subsequent dip, his skin would harden, along with his resolve, both body and mind strengthening in the process. When a big thing did go wild, the hivers would throw the remains of the lake, where the acid would slowly but surely cook the creature. Squeamish as though it made him feel, Cat would not want for food while here in Vane. And so days begin to pass by here in Vane, and we'll check back in with them after a few more have drifted by. A week had passed by before the first train of nomads made their way into Vane. It seemed they traded with the hive regularly, selling garu and pack beasts, even bone dogs. Cat had neither the time or the cats to raise the creatures, but sometimes you don't get to choose. And this was one of those sometimes. A small bone dog had seemingly taken a liking to the lad. Try as he might to ignore it, the little one followed Cat wherever he went. And so, reluctantly, before the nomads moved on, Cat parted with 80 cats to purchase the young pup. She had no name and was the only one of her family, not unlike Cat himself. And so after much thought and deliberation, he finally landed on a name. Dog. Yes, seemingly all those years living in hardship hadn't snuffed out the boy's sense of humor yet. And so it was. He had a companion. A small one at that, but a companion all the same. It was another mouth to feed, but Dog would happily look over Cat as he slept. Another set of eyes, even in somewhere safe like Vane, was still invaluable. Exercise equipment could be hard to come by in Vane, but ever eager, Cat would find a way. Life was not always so easy though. The great creatures, the beak things, posed a constant threat to Vane and the hivers therein. Gladly, Cat fought alongside the soldiers of the hive. Even Dog would help out, nipping at the heels of these massive creatures. And just like in the hub, to the victors go the spoils, and there were many spoils to be had. Leather and meat aplenty, more than Cat could process alone. And so what he didn't need for himself or for Dog, he would sell back to the hive. All the while, Cat got to hone his skill with the blade. Working a copper node day and night, Cat sought to make his backpack heavier so that it'd be harder to swing that blade of his, so that when he wasn't carrying all that copper, he'd be all the more faster and stronger. The strategy seemed to work. The big things were harder to fight, yet he could still strike. However, big things weren't the only thing out in these woods. Mighty creatures known as gorillas, seemingly one of the only wild animals that could pose a threat to the big things. Far more stronger than any foe Cat had faced thus far. Its strikes caused the phoenix blade to ring. But with slash after slash, the great ape was finally dead. In the midst of bloodshed, it's easy to miss out on those that have fallen, but Cat always had his eye out for the little one. Dog was tenacious, a fighter, a survivor, just like he. Together, the two of them could keep each other safe. And so with that, we will once again be leaving Cat for a time. As his days pass here in Vane, our young survivor will become stronger. This landscape will test him. The big things, the gorillas, and even the bandits that come too close, all of them will make him stronger. And just like in the last episode, today's has covered a great deal of gameplay in compressed time. And I hope you all can enjoy the progress that Cat has made today. Far from the hub now, and in a very different world. And even though he's surrounded by people here, he still feels very alone. The Hive don't socialize like those in the hub did. And as much of a part of their society as Cat is now, he will always be seen as an outsider, hiveless. And it's for that very reason he won't be staying forever. In the next, we will follow Cat's journey further to the west, deeper into the Valley of Vane, and through the old, dried river system, all the way to the sea. But that shall be next time. Thank you all for joining me for another episode with Cat here in Kenshi. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a comment or a like to let me know if you enjoyed the show. For now, I have been Rycon. You have all been awesome. And until next time, stay tuned.